python in a lilac bush. Bizarre, you might think, but not quite so bizarre, because this is the Rainforest Roadshow. And most of the animals here are used for feature films and television programmes. Now, this very snake here was used for the gangster film, The Crawlies. So, let's meet some of the animals and the boss, David Manning. Well, these guys here really do have a bad reputation. Everyone thinks they're, horrible. But in fact, they're not. They're lovely. They're tarantulas. Well, this is a tarantula, isn't it?
That's right. This particular one is actually called Erica.
Yeah.
And she stars in the latest adventures of Indiana Jones.
Does she?
She does.
Right. Now, you know James Bond, Dr. No, when he slaps the old tarantula on his chest like that? Well, it's bad news for them, isn't it, really? Because if this one stung you, if this one stung David, it wouldn't be any worse than a bee sting, would it?
That's right. In fact, the hairs they have that protect their abdomen are much more of an irritant than the venom would be.
Yeah, because they actually flick those out, don't they, with their back legs. With these back legs here, they flick those hairs out and they've got tiny barbs on the end of them.
That's right.
And any predator that actually chases them, say, for example, a rat, will get these barbs in its eyes and it will temporarily blind it, won't it?
It's very, very painful. I have actually had some in my eyes before. You can see that.
Can you see the silk? Yeah. Now, they actually don't make webs like spiders do. They live in sort of little cocoons, don't they?
That's right. Well, there's a little sort of burrow under the ground, and they'd come out at night and hunt in the immediate vicinity. You can also tell she's particularly well fed because the abdomen here, the rear part, is quite well swollen.
Yeah, that's right. And when they're underfed, it's very small, isn't it?
That's right.
And also, they shed their skin whole, don't they?
One entire piece.
Yeah, a healthy tarantula will shed its skin whole, and there'd be a beautiful sort of specimen there. Now, this really is a very interesting snake. It's a Californian king snake. And the interesting thing about it is that it eats other snakes, doesn't it?
That's right. And its favourite food is the rattlesnake, which, of course, is a highly venomous snake.
Now, it must move pretty fast to be able to catch a rattlesnake and eat it.
That really is the reason it can. It is a very, very quick snake.
Yeah.
But it is also immune to a certain amount of rattlesnake venom.
So it can take some of it.
If it gets a small bite, when trying to overpower a snake, it will still survive.
Yeah, and of course this is non-venomous as well, isn't it?
That's right, it's definitely non-venomous.
It's a constrictor, really. It eats small rodents again?
Yes, he would, and lizards, birds. But I think the reason they call them the king snake is because they eat the rattlesnakes, and of course locals actually quite like to see one of these around.
Well, it's the kind of snake I'd keep as a pet if I lived near any rattlesnakes, wouldn't you?
Absolutely, yes.
Because it would chase them off, probably. It's got a lovely shaped head, you know. Really lovely, rounded shaped head. Everyone amazes me about all these snakes, the 2,600 species of snake in the world, as they've all got these very, very pretty heads. Don't you think they're pretty?
Yep, and there's such variety, isn't there?
Apart from I think, the gaboon viper, which I don't think is quite so pretty, is it?
Oh, I think it's really pretty.
Do you think that's pretty?
It's not really one to hold.
No, well... But that's lovely. I mean, that's really nice.
Californian king snake, again, from obviously North America, varies its habitat from dense, very sort of arid desert to suburbs of cities. We have here a baby California king snake. Now, this one is actually just over a year old, quite considerable difference in size, and also in markings.
Yeah, just over a year old. I mean, this one must grow, they must grow quite rapidly, actually.
They do, very, very quickly.
Size. The markings, you say, difference, yes.
That's right. Well, in the wild, there are two types of California king snakes. Some of them are banded like this, and others have stripes. And this youngster seems to be a bit of a mix between the two.
Yes, it's creamy as well, isn't it? It's sort of yellow creamy as well.
When they're young, they do tend to be yellower, and that fades to white as they grow old.
No, this has got to be one of nature's most successful animals, the Madagascan hissing cockroach, hasn't it?
Yeah, indeed.
Actually makes that noise, doesn't it?
They do. They really do make a loud hissing noise to startle you if you're a predator.
If you're a predator. Now, they can also survive extremes of temperature as well.
That's right, and radiation.
And radiation, yeah. I mean, I think it's something like 100 centigrade they can survive, which is incredibly hot. But, I mean, they've got this very strong protective shell on top of them as well, haven't they?
And beautifully marked on this one. This is one of the largest cockroaches that you find, and they come from the rainforest floor in Madagascar.
Right, it's time to enter the magic world of 3D, so put on your glasses and remember the dark lens over the right eye. Let's just take a close look at those hairs on the body of the tarantula. They're there for many reasons, but one of the most important ones is to pick up vibrations. And that enables it to catch its prey very, very quickly. The tarantula has 8 legs, and that helps it to climb very easily. If you look closely at the top of the head, you can see that it also has 8 eyes. The locust, at ground level, foraging for food. Of course, it's very vulnerable to predators at that level. Armor plating of the best type. And just look at that head. It has incredibly powerful jaws for eating vegetation. The king snake. Silently searching for prey. Using its tongue to pick up tiny scent molecules in the air, it gets faster and faster as it gets closer to its prey. The hissing cockroach, constantly on the lookout for food. literally covered in armour plating. And those antennae really are working overtime. The giant African millipede literally has hundreds of pairs of legs. It's an incredible animal, isn't it, David?
They really are a most amazing thing. From tropical Africa, this particular one is found.
Yeah.
And they call them changalolas, or jungle trains. And they'll be
Jungle
found
trains.
walking along the paths, particularly at night, I think, just after rain.
Yeah.
When they come out looking for vegetation.
Yeah. And they've got a wonderful defence system as well, haven't they?
And they have a rather smelly,
Yeah.
mucky...
Poo, really,
Basically,
is the
yes.
word for it. Yeah. And that's what happens when they're defending themselves. They excrete all of that, and it really does smell and make rather a mess, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And they do have hundreds of legs. I love the way those legs move in waves like that, don't you?
It really is quite beautiful.
If you get it sort of straight on your arm there, we can see why they actually call it a train, because it really does look like a train in a funny sort of way, doesn't it?
Of course, you get millipedes all over the world, don't you? It's just that the largest ones come from the tropics.
Yeah, I mean, you get much bigger ones than these as well.
Oh, definitely. I mean, but the millipedes in this country are barely the size of these ones' legs.
Yeah, it really is a lovely feeling, isn't it, having these? It's like a sort of brush on your hand, isn't it? Eh? Look at that. That is wonderful. Just look at the way that millipede is moving there, look. Wowie. And they use those antennas, don't they, at the front there?
Sort of feel their way.
To feel their way around, because I don't think they've got terribly good eyesight, have they?
No, non-existent, I think.
Yeah.
They're really just feeling their way for something nice to munch.
In fact, very, very primitive animals, aren't they?
Yeah.
Well, these are one of my favourite animals. In fact, two of my favourite animals. These are royal pythons. And there are something like 2,600 species of snake in the world, and these are constrictors. They're non-venomous. In other words, they're not poisonous at all, are they?
That's right.
And they kill their prey by literally wrapping themselves around like they've done to David's arm here. Now, how old are these two, David?
These particular ones are about 2-3 years old. They're young adults.
Yeah.
But the royal python doesn't reach the colossal lengths that some of the pythons
Like
do.
the anaconda or the
That's
reticulated
right.
python.
Yeah.
I mean,
they don't get anything like 10 metres. In fact, 2.5 metres would be the maximum you'd ever find a royal python.
Yeah. And you'd feed these on day-old chicks, small mice.
That's right, rodents.
Rodents.
They actually, naturally inhabit West Africa, and they feed on the gerbil is actually part of their natural diet.
Right, right.
So small rodents.
Now, one of the ways they actually find food is by flicking that tongue in and out, and you can see it's forked, so you can pick up sort of scent molecules in the air. And it then transfers them to an organ in the roof of the mouth called the Jacobson's organ, which is really, I suppose, similar to a super-sensitive taste bud, isn't it?
It is. They're really tasting the air. That's
Tasting
exactly
the air.
right.
Their eyesight isn't that good, is it?
No, it's the tongue is their major sense. I
Yeah.
think that's really how they understand their
Yeah.
environment.
And they actually strike very, very quickly. They creep up to their prey actually quite slowly. And when they get within striking distance, they strike. They strike fast. And they don't often miss, do they?
No, that's right. Very, very quick and always on target.
Yeah. These European tree frogs I find very pretty, don't you?
One of my favourite amphibians, actually. And for the size of the frog, you wouldn't believe the noise they can make in springtime when they're calling. It sounds like a distant machine gun.
Yeah, yeah.
And they're very active at the moment. I think they're quite warm in there, and they're busy hopping around looking for some flies or something interesting to eat. Like most amphibians, they're egg layers. They tend to lay their eggs in long strands in amongst the water weeds in a pond. Hopefully these will breed next spring. They're still a little bit young.
Have you ever bred them here?
I haven't ever bred these yet, no.
So you're looking forward to breeding these ones?
Yeah. But trouble is, one successful breeding with this little colony here will generate maybe 20,000 tree frogs.
That's good. That's good news. Ah, look at that. Right. Got a good head-on view there.
Amazing little suckers again on their fingers.
Yeah. They still slide down the glass there, because,
Yeah,
I mean, that's unnatural for them, but
That's
under,
right.
under normal circumstances, they'd probably stay pretty still, wouldn't they?
On a twig or a rock, they wouldn't
Yeah,
slip at all.
they just wouldn't move. So once again, we're going to enter the magic world of 3D, so it's time to put your glasses back on. The magnificence of the giant African millipede. Just look at those waves of movement on the legs. Constantly on the move. If you look closely, you can see they're actually in pairs. The incredibly well camouflaged royal python. Not a fast mover until it gets closer to its prey. These field crickets move actually quite fast, don't they? The green tree frog, lying in wait for some unsuspecting insect. Well, I do know for a fact that David here likes all forms of live wildlife, so I'm just a little bit surprised seeing all these dead species here, David.
Well, they're used for all sorts of purposes, Terry, you see. Not only to educate people, but moths like this death's head hawk moth have appeared in films like Silence of the Lambs.
Silence of the Lambs, really?
Yeah.
Yeah. And this is one of the biggest species of moth?
It is. It's one of the larger. I mean, you do actually get some from the tropics that are 10 times as big as this.
Yeah. And what about that one there?
We've got here, this is actually called a cicada.
Yeah.
And I mean, just compare this tropical cicada with your average size British or European beetle.
Yeah.
It's a colossal difference, isn't it?
Isn't it? And look at the size of the eyes on that as well.
That's right. This is a really strange animal because it spends several years underground as a grub before emerging for this adult phase as a cicada. And they only live like this sometimes for a week or two.
Yeah, yeah.
Years underground, and then they emerge like that for a week.
And if you're very lucky and you get one when it's just died, you land up with a specimen like this.
Like that.
That's good as well. And this guy here is incredible, isn't it?
This is called a Goliath beetle.
Yeah. Really hard shell.
Very hard shell, but actually very velvety on top of the head if you feel it. It's quite a strange texture.
Yeah, it is.
Most of these beetles would roam around the floor of rainforests or fly through the canopy and eat various types of vegetation.
Yeah. Now, what about this one? Isn't that amazing?
It is an incredible animal. This is a South American beetle. It's very similar, really, to our stag beetle.
Yeah.
It's just a larger form. Now, you get 2-horned varieties like that, and even, quite amazingly, a 5-horned variety. And this one, we have the wing cases raised, and you can just see the wings.
Well, some people say that the female is the boss, and in this particular animal, it really is the case, the praying mantis, isn't it, David?
That's right. This here is a young female African mantis.
Yeah.
And one of the interesting things is they have that wonderful wavy movement, don't they? So as they climb along, you actually think it's a leaf or sort of some other part of the plant.
Brilliant, yeah. Again, brilliant camouflage in the shape of their legs as well. And I'll tell you what I like most of all, it's that head.
Triangular.
Triangular head, and especially in the bigger ones as well. It's got so much character. It moves it around. It moves it actually quite slow, doesn't it?
That's right. It makes it a bit human. That's sort of looking down and considering.
Looking down and looking over and just taking it all in. And they've got those tiny little sort of spikes again on their legs, haven't they?
That's right. Well, that's really where the term praying mantis comes from, because their legs have spikes and they'll sit around like this.
Right.
They're actually a very fierce predator, and they'll hunt or wait in ambush for another insect, reach out with those legs, grab it, put it straight back to the mouth and start eating immediately.
And really powerful jaws they've got as well, haven't they?
If these were 5 or 6 foot big, they'd be a terrifying animal.
Yeah, absolutely.
They really are savage.
And the females generally eat the male just after mating, don't they?
That's right.
Yeah, that's not a very nice way to go, really, is it? This is a monitor lizard, and it's from Africa. And first of all, we must point out that it doesn't live in this container all the time, does it?
No, he's just here for show.
Just here for show. Now, he feeds on, crickets, locusts?
Yep, eggs, small birds, almost anything he can actually scavenge or hunt down in the bush.
Yeah, and they get to quite a big size as well. I mean, the bigger lizards go up to the Komodo dragon, don't they?
That's the biggest monitor of all, and they can reach in excess of 10 feet.
Yeah, and eat human beings?
They have eaten human beings. And then at the other extreme end of the scale, the pygmy monitor is about half the size of this one.
Right, yeah.
There are bright green monitors that live up trees, monitors that swim, and monitors that climb. This particular chap is from West Africa and stays this sort of pebbly grey colour.
Well, I'm sure he likes that. He's losing his skin, sloughing as well, isn't he?
Again,
a little
in
bit.
pieces.
Yeah, and got that incredibly long tongue.
It really is long, isn't it?
Used for sensing, used for finding prey.
That's right. Because a lot of the time he'd probably smell some food down a burrow and have to dig down to find his food.
And that's got to be, what, 3 or 4 inches long?
At least, I'd have thought. It really is a long purple tongue.
Now, this very pretty snake is called a milk snake, and it really is an imposter. It's a mimic, isn't it?
That's right. It's actually pretending to be something it isn't. And that's a coral snake, which is highly venomous.
Yeah.
The only way of knowing, of course, is by knowing which order the bands of colours go in.
That's right. Now, these milk snakes actually come in all different sort of colours, really, don't they? There's yellow and black ones?
Yep, yellow and black.
And the yellow and black ones are one of the most dangerous, aren't they?
Well, the actual coral snake
snakes
is highly venomous.
Yes.
And they teach you a rhyme, actually, if you live in Central America.
Go for it, then.
You say
that rhyme. Say that rhyme.
OK, it's red and yellow kill a fellow,
Yeah.
and red and black venom lack. So if the red is surrounded by black markings, you're quite safe.
Yeah, it's really very, very clever, isn't it? Now, on the coral snake, it's the yellow and the black, isn't it? Or the
red and the yellow, actually, the bands next to each other, that is the highly venomous variety. As long as the red is surrounded by black, you're OK.
You're OK. Yeah. And they kill you in how many seconds?
It's very quick.
Is it?
Very, very quick. They really are deadly venomous snake.
Now, these ones are incredibly gentle, aren't they?
Very peaceful. I mean, actually, most of the time trying to burrow through our fingers to find somewhere to hide.
Yeah.
They're quite a secretive snake.
How long have you had these ones?
These are both about 1.5 years old.
Once again, it's time to put your glasses back on and see that magical world of animals in 3D. The monitor lizard. Just one of 3,751 species. Searching for insects or birds. The milk snake. One of the best mimics of the natural world. These have got to be one of the most attractive of all lizards. They're called the collared lizards, and it really does look like someone has sort of just dabbed all those lovely yellows and greens and blues on them, doesn't it, David?
That's right. There are actually hundreds of different types of lizard like this, and they vary dramatically in colour as much as they do habitat. I mean, these particular ones will live on the edge of deserts in sort of scrubland.
Yeah.
And probably if they're rushing through the undergrowth, it is quite a good camouflage.
Oh, absolutely. And also these ones are very, very calm, aren't they?
Very relaxed. They're just sitting here and watching us.
Yeah.
Notice the very bright blue throat pouch.
Yes.
Particularly on the male here.
Yeah.
And they use that to display to each other. They actually get involved in a lot of head bobbing and charging up and down on rocks to show each other, this is my rock.
As you do.
That sort of stuff.
As you do. And that beautiful yellow, that's a really lovely yellow, or orangey yellow, isn't it? And again, a long tail, which is used for defence mostly, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Quite long toes as well for racing across the sand or rocks.
The black forest scorpion, you know, it's got to be one of my favourite animals, but it's got an incredibly bad reputation. And that is simply because of that sting on the top of its tail, isn't it, David?
That's right. And this obviously is something not to try at home.
That's right.
Scorpions around the world are venomous.
Yeah.
Some are very, very deadly.
Yeah.
It just so happens that this particular type is relatively harmless and they're not aggressive. If he did sting us, it would be something like a bee sting.
Yeah, no more than that.
No more than that.
They are, in fact, very, very shy animals, and most of the scorpions are nocturnal, aren't they?
They are.
Live in burrows.
That's right. I mean, this one actually hides away on the floor of rainforests in tropical countries like Thailand and China, around that region.
Well, there are some people that would say I was absolutely mad by saying this iguana here was pretty, but I think it's lovely. It's a green iguana from Central and South America. And I think it's a lovely animal, don't you?
So do I. I think they're stunning. Of course, it's a reptile.
Yeah.
It comes from tropical areas, the Caribbean, Central and South America. And they live high up in the trees.
And this one is only about 2 years old, so it's a baby, really.
It's a baby, fully grown. They can reach about 6 feet. Their body and head would be roughly the same size as a domestic cat when it's fully grown.
It really is very attractive to look at. It's got a lovely head, lovely brown eyes, aren't they?
And it's the blue, the intense blue on his face, I think.
Yeah, and lots of character.
So nice.
And that one, in fact, is shedding as well. It does shed its skin. This one's probably sheds its skin once every 6 weeks or so. And as it grows bigger, it sheds it less, doesn't it?
That's right, yeah. And they shed right up until the old lizards.
To the old lizards.
It's got very, very long toes
Claws.
with very sharp claws for climbing trees. So they can literally climb straight up the
But
trunk
also,
of the tree.
I mean, they are razor sharp, aren't they? And if they got you, I mean, they
really do hurt.
do a lot of damage. One of the main forms of defence, of course, is that long tail which they use to whip, don't they?
That's
They use
right,
it as a whip, really. So once again, we're going to enter the magic world of 3D. So it's time to put your glasses back on. A collared lizard lying quietly. Always on the lookout for prey. The black forest scorpion. And you can see the sting on the end of the tail. The red area, that is the poison sac. He uses those claws to capture his prey. And uses that sting to defend himself. They can move fast on land, but they are generally nocturnal. They are excellent climbers. An iguana looking out for food. All the animals we've seen are beautiful and magnificent. But the only way they're going to survive is by us human beings being a little bit more generous. We've got to look after their habitat and indeed look after the wildlife itself.